Have you ever been scrolling through Netflix and it serves up a recommendation that's so perfect it's almost creepy? You finish one show and the next one it suggests is exactly what you were in the mood for. Well, it feels like magic, but it's actually big data. And today, we're going to unpack exactly how Netflix cracked the code to our viewing habits and built a whole media empire on it. For decades, this was basically the gospel in Hollywood. The legendary screenwriter William Goldman said it best. Making a hit movie was a multi-million-dollar guess. You could have the biggest stars, the best director, and still have absolutely no clue if you were making a blockbuster or a total bomb. Right. But what if you could flip that script? What if you could take all that guesswork and just throw it out the window? What if you could use cold, hard data to practically guarantee a hit? Well, that's the question Netflix decided to answer, and in the process, they set out to prove William Goldman wrong.
So, how'd they do it? Well, this whole journey started way before they were making their own shows. Back in the day, when they were still mailing out those red DVDs, their entire business model was built on one single powerful idea. They needed an engine that could predict your taste.
It all kicked off back in 2006 with something called the Netflix Prize. They offered $1 million to anyone who could improve their recommendation algorithm. But then, in 2007, they launched streaming, and everything changed. The prize was eventually won in 2009, but honestly, by then, Netflix was sitting on a data explosion that was about to change the whole game.
And to really get just how big of a leap this was, you gotta see where they started. In the DVD era, analysts had just 4 little data points for each of us. Our user ID, the movie's ID, the rating we gave it, and the date. That's it. A good start, sure, but just a tiny peek into what we really liked. And this was the turning point. The second we moved from waiting for an envelope in the mail to just clicking play, we started handing Netflix a complete treasure trove of data. Every time you pause, every rewind, every weekend you binge watch an entire season, all of it became a signal for their algorithms. And the sheer scale was just staggering. We're talking about 65 million members, all watching over 100 million hours of content every single day, which added up to a mind-blowing 10 billion hours streamed in just the first quarter of 2015. This wasn't just big data anymore. It was a tidal wave of information, and it was about to let Netflix do something no Hollywood studio had ever done before. So what do you do with that mountain of data? Well, Netflix realized they didn't have to just recommend other studios' shows anymore. They could use all that information as a blueprint to engineer their very own guaranteed hit. And that hit was House of Cards. Now look, this wasn't a gamble. It was a calculation. Their data showed them clear as day that a huge chunk of their audience loved director David Fincher. And that same audience, also huge fans of Kevin Spacey. With that data in hand, they walked in and confidently outbid giants like HBO. And here's the real kicker. They were so sure it would work, they skipped the pilot episode entirely and ordered 2 full seasons right off the bat. So how in the world did they get so specific? How do they understand what we like on such a deep level? Well, that's where we get to the secret language Netflix basically invented to classify every movie and show on Earth. They call them microgenres. And forget your typical comedy or drama. We are talking about nearly 80,000 hyper-specific categories designed to capture the unique vibe, the very DNA of everything in their library. So instead of just suggesting a comedy, the system might serve up something that sounds a little robotic, right? Like this. That really specific, almost weird-sounding suggestion, that's the microgenre system working perfectly, matching the exact flavor of a show to your exact taste. And how did they build this crazy system? Well, at first, it was surprisingly human. Netflix literally paid thousands of people to just watch TV and movies. But they had to follow a super detailed 32-page guide to tag everything you could imagine. Themes, character traits, even really specific plot points, like a hero experiencing a religious epiphany. It was a massive effort to turn art into data. And today, more and more of this work is being handed over to AI. Now, processing billions of data points and serving up instant, personalized recommendations for millions of people all at once, that doesn't just happen. It takes an absolutely massive and incredibly sophisticated tech setup running behind the scenes. So what's under the hood? Well, the whole thing runs on Amazon's cloud, AWS. For the really heavy lifting, the data crunching, they use powerful tools like Hadoop and Spark. Think of those as giant data factories. Their databases, like Cassandra, are built to handle just insane amounts of information. And then, on top of all that, they've built their own custom tools, like one called Genie, to manage the whole shebang. Okay, so after all of that, this massive investment in data, a huge tech stack, and literally an army of people tagging movies, did it actually work? What was the bottom line? Oh yeah, the numbers don't lie. In just the first 3 months of 2015, Netflix added nearly 5 million new subscribers. And their original shows, the ones built on data, were a huge driver. A staggering 90% of their members watched that original content, proving the formula wasn't just working, it was a home run. You see, this whole data-driven model isn't just about creating one or two hits. It's pointing to a really fundamental shift in how we consume entertainment. It's building a future that looks totally different from the TV of the past. The end game here seems to be creating personalized TV. Forget about the old TV guide. Netflix is building a world where your own personal primetime schedule is created just for you, based on your mood, your viewing history, and what the data predicts you'll be desperate to watch next. But as we wrap this up, it leaves us with a pretty fascinating question to think about. In a world where every single recommendation is a sure thing, and every show is perfectly engineered just for us, what happens to the happy accidents? What's lost when we don't stumble across something weird, something unexpected, something that might just challenge us? This whole deep dive we just took into Netflix's amazing data strategy was based on the research and case studies found in Bernard Marr's fantastic book, Big Data in Practice. Thanks for watching. The next time you're scrolling through that endless library, you'll know a little more about the incredible data engine working behind the magic.